forms of economic crime in the country. He said that vandalism has a direct impact on the lives of millions of South Africans who rely on commuter rail services to travel to work or to school or study. We appreciate the commitment of the President as stated during the interaction with the NCOP to take decisive measures to improve the security of the rail lines. Part of this plan, he said, is to immediately appoint security personnel and to deploy remotely piloted aircraft system to conduct virtual patrols of high-risk infrastructure. He added that this capability would work together with specialized investigations and armed response in securing public infrastructure through increased vigilance agencies of any suspicious and illegal activity in the form of vandalism or theft of rail infrastructure. We urge communities to volunteer any information, whatever information they may have, on plans by criminal elements, vandalism of rail and other public of all citizens. It flies in the face of economic reconstruction and recovery plan outlined recently by the President in Parliament that is aimed at stimulating equitable and inclusive growth, particularly in the light of the economic devastation caused by COVID-19 pandemic. On the outcome of the provincial meeting. In session will help us to process the actions we need to take in order to assist in ensuring that things change for the better. Our focus on municipalities come as a result of identified challenges at local government level. It is part of our overall socio-economic transformation agenda. It is part of an intervention that we're making of government to the people. As we're all aware, over time, which seeks to improve the coherent districts and 8 metros across the country. These development spaces can be used as centers of service delivery and indeed economic development. In this context, the critical work of oversight institutions like the NCOP is to oversee and help promote the alignment of work of different spheres of government. Let me just emphasize that so a brief examination of the program revealed that the following: that there's going to be a visit to Katlehong, Cape Town, and Maritzburg railway stations. We'll engage with the stakeholders, and tomorrow we will then do a debriefing with the aim, of course, of ensuring that if there are any meaningful observations that have been made, such observations find expression in a formal meeting. With these few words, it's my pleasure to open this morning's briefing session on transport infrastructure, especially rail, and to welcome everybody in attendance. Thank you very much. To a briefing by the CEO of Transport, Mr. Hisham Emeran. Hisham, are you there?
Chair, it's General Raka who can I tender an apology on behalf of Mr. Hisham. is unavailable at this requested to occupy or speak on behalf of PRASA. And good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to the colleagues. I will be leading the delegation of PRASA. Myself, it's Teboho Rakau, and I will be ably assisted by various colleagues from PRASA whom I'll request to also introduce themselves before we carry on with the presentation. Notably, it will be the CEO from PRASA Rail. May I invite the colleagues to introduce themselves before we kickstart the presentation? Thanks. Through yourself, Chair. Yes, it's okay. The CEO of PRASA Rail is Nosipo, as Mrs. Matikizele by various members within their region. So I'll give opportunity to colleagues, for colleagues to introduce themselves. Thanks.
Good morning, Chairperson.
I've just been asked to ask Mranatebu Rakaumo to adjust the screen so that you are visible. Please proceed, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, and all the members of the NCOP in the province. My name is Nosi Porta Masane. I am the newly appointed CEO for PRASA Rail. So I look after the operations in rail.
Good morning, members of the NCOP. I'm Nyameka Matikizela. I'm the CEO of PRASA CRES, which is a corporate estate solutions. We manage the facilities, the stations, and also other responsibilities, look at the station modernization process in support of the rail business. Thank you.
Here I go. Rakau, please proceed. Unmute yourself, Mre. Rakau. Rakau.
Okay, Chair. Can we give a chance to other members to introduce themselves? It seems I've also lost audio on my side. I'm not sure if I'm audible. I can't hear what the colleagues have been saying. So I hope I'm audible on your side.
There we are, you are. Wow, please proceed. The colleagues can always introduce themselves later if they're not available.
Okay, thanks. I will share the presentation. It says here the host disabled the participant screen sharing. Who's hosting? May you please enable me to share the presentation?
Sir, I have enabled you. You may proceed.
Please proceed, Greg. We'll ask the table there to assist with the technical problems. But please proceed. Yeah, I can see the slide here. Please proceed.
Okay, Chair, the purpose of the presentation is to highlight to the NCOP the incidents of vandalism and security interventions which have been taken by PRASA The partnership which were formed between PRASA and the SAPS, then we'll also take you through the schedule for train service resumption and PRASA compliance to COVID-19 protocol.
Please proceed.
Firstly, the main objective of the business of PRASA is to ensure that the rail commuter service is provided within the Republic and the interest and in consultation with the Department of National Transport, basically to ensure that the transport is available in terms of Act number 22 of 2000 as amended. The second objective, and which is a secondary one, is that PRASA should also be able to generate its own income by exploitation of assets which is acquired. And in doing this, all the objectives must be achieved in compliance with the government key social and economic transport policies. What is PRASA having in terms of its assets? This is not a conclusive list, but we've just listed the major assets. We've got 2,228 kilometers of rail. We've got train stations amounting to 530 throughout the country. And then you can look at the number of coaches which we've got to look at of what Transnet is looking at in terms of rail. A brief background in terms of why we find ourselves in this situation. During the latter part of 2019, the former PRASA board, and this we are mentioning with due respect, not as a complaint, but to ensure that we read from the same page. The contracts of security companies were terminated at that stage during the latter part of 2019. And some of the security companies successfully managed to interdict PRASA from terminating those contracts. There were two cases which, or litigations which were launched, one in Gauteng, the other one in Western Cape. And in the case of Western Cape, the court stated that PRASA cannot terminate the contracts before a viable alternative is presented to the Western Cape High Court. And in Gauteng, the decision of the court was the PRASA, it's within its mandate, opportunity or chance, or they are given ample notice before those contracts are terminated. So based on those two decisions, the contracts in Gauteng were terminated. In April, the notices were issued. So we entered into a marriage with a security company, also worked in our favor to take over the responsibility in terms of asset protection. And that arrangement between PRASA and the South African Police Service was supposed to kickstart 2020. And unfortunately, that did not materialize. So we ended up with a situation where in the Western Cape and in the other provinces, which is Gauteng, KZN, and Eastern Cape, contracts were terminated. Of termination of security companies. Then in June, PRASA went out on an emergency procurement for security services through a tender, which was advertised in early June. And unfortunately, PRASA was also successfully interdicted in this regard in the Cape Town High Court. That the PRASA cannot go out on any security tender before the judgment of the Western Cape High Court, which was issued last year in November, it's complied with. So as such, we couldn't embark on any procurement service in terms of security contracts. But we have since managed to submit the responding affidavit to the Cape Town High Court. And as we speak, we are now awaiting a court date so that the heads of argument can be presented. That the executive of PRASA took a decision to employ directly, and that decision was taken in early July. And on the 17th of July, we went out on advertisement to recruit 3,100 protection officials to be employed permanently by PRASA. And as we speak, advertisement for the closed. As I've indicated, as from the first week of May, we're faced with the unprecedented that all the security companies or personnel were withdrawn. We're only left with internal personnel, which is about a quarter of the security complement which we used to have before the contracts were terminated. And the different sections of the railway line. These are some of the effects which we saw in the previous few months. We've seen an escalation of organized entity, where even some of the rail lines were completely removed from the servitude. Some of the challenges which we have been faced with, it's crime, theft, and vandalism of assets. And there's also what we term to be sabotage, because at some stage it's even banned without anything being taken. We've had few incidents in the East End. And we are also being faced with the publics killed by illegal connections, the lack of proper investigations and intelligence. Security contracts do not create strategic partnership with the business. And there was also less dependence on modern technology. Of security personnel, currently about 749 out of the 3,100 has got to be re-advertised because suitable personnel could not be appointed. The introduction of e-guarding solution. The e-guarding solution is basically the efficiency in terms of the high sites and the relay rooms to ensure that they've got what we call self-defense mechanism, so that we remove the warm bodies from those type of facilities to can be concentrated. It's either on the station or on the trains themselves. Then the procurement of specialized investigation services with legal support and access to criminal laboratories. And then the deployment of remotely piloted aircraft systems. These three facets of our security strategy, the e-guarding system should be going out to the market in the next week. The specialized in visiting at the BSC in the coming, and that will also be linked, Chair, at the grand scale in terms of corridor walling and Mabopane corridor and central line in Cape Town. The procurement for ensuring that these corridors are walled has already commenced. At this stage, it's the consultants who are dealing with the design of those corridors should be appointed. The bids are now being evaluated so that the suitable companies can be appointed before the. So it's in progress. Treasury last week in the 900 million, which it will be biased towards security interventions. And part of those is to ensure that over and above the internal recruitment, we also gonna go out on service requests for private security companies to ensure that we at least manage to have guards at almost all our stations. So that tender is being prepared, and what we are doing is we have written letters of request to AXA and also ESCOM of sourcing in these private security companies, and that will be for a period of coming 12 months while we strengthen our internal capabilities. Then we also have got what we call an integrated approach, which we launched together with SEPS, the National Prosecuting Authority, different sections of the South African police in terms of the Hawks, crime intelligence, and also the detective section. And that operation or integrated approach is based on 5 pillars. The first pillar is intelligence gathering and analysis and coordination. The second pillar is proactive approach. The third pillar is combat approach. The fourth pillar is a reactive approach through detection. And the fifth pillar is a community and stakeholder management and liaison. This operation has started, and in the previous 4 weeks, we have seen some of the major scrap dealers being taken to task with large quantities either belonging to PRASA and Transnet being confiscated. And what we also managed to achieve is to ensure that there is proper follow-up in terms of cases which are being opened by PRASA, that the culprits should be charged with what we call Criminal Matters Amendment Act, which could not come into effect before the Critical Infrastructure Act was approved. It has since been approved during the month of July, so we're able to ensure that the culprits or perpetrators are charged in terms of the correct act. I won't repeat this slide, it's already what we spoke about. Left-hand side of the slide where I'm pointing, that is basically the implementation of the e-guarding. These gadgets will be placed at each and every substation. The intention is that able traders from getting away with any of the equipment of PRASA. And that will do in the form of drone surveillance. And we're also looking at what we call persistent surveillance through the aerostats. This we are looking at deploying at our major depots or yards to ensure that we've got the persistent surveillance, especially looking at the fact that at most of the yards were unable to detect thefts and vandalism, especially happening within the trains. But if you deploy the aerostats, they are able to give you a horizontal view, and you should be able to pick up any movement, even in between the trains. So that process we are dealing with Denel. It will be, we have signed an MOU with Denel to be. Then these are the case analysis as from the month of April this year. You can see that we had over 7 790 cases were declared which have been, or evidence which have been gathered was not sufficient enough to ensure that any prosecution. On a training of various security officers from all the regions, we'll start the training with about 10 persons. They are also trained as first responders to crime incidents, so that the crime scene is not contaminated, and we should ensure better prospect. We've got also cases which are now in court, 96 of them, and we've got 133 cases which are still under investigation, and we've got 31 cases which have been withdrawn, and invalid case numbers, it's 62. So when we train our personnel properly, we'll see a reduction in terms of invalid case numbers, meaning that cases have been registered at wrong police stations and stuff like that. And we'll also see a reduction, hopefully, and more important, to ensure that we've got less undetected cases. In terms of employment update, our target was about 3,100. As you can see, in Gauteng, we have managed to achieve 64%, KZN 13%, Western Cape 9%, properly. We've managed to achieve over 70%. I don't know why is it still zero here. Apologies for that mistake. And in terms of which is critical strategy, greatly, over 200 posts will also be re-advertised. Incidents which we've also experienced in the previous 5 to be terminated. And the notices were first issued, we could see this escalation. Then there are various factors which are contributing towards it. Might either be transport in terms of other stakeholders like buses or taxis, but we don't want to allay the blame on anybody without any proof. But the fact is that since those notices were issued, you can see from last year, November, the number of cases which were registered with SEPs. We ensure proper illumination within our yards. We ensure that the yards are being cleaned, and there are programs which are aligned to what I'm saying. Reactivation of CCTV cameras, tree felling and vegetation clearing, and also the demolition of dilapidated structures. Then coordinated programs to evict vagrants and illegal occupants. This is also one of our major problems. I can give you an example of the central line. It's closed, and if one has gotten illegal occupants have literally established structures right on top of the rail. So before we can restart service involved, currently there are discussions between the Cape Town City and PRASA together with the Department of Housing and Department of Transport, so that we can ensure that we speedily reallocate those occupants from the rail to suitable places, so that we can open up the rail and it should serve its purpose. Then fixing of repair of the fences, and the urgent disposal of scrap. There's a lot of scrap which has been disposed over the years within PRASA, and that is also attracting a lot of criminals into our yards to forage on those scraps. Then beefing up of security personnel, I've already addressed that aspect in the previous slides. Then in terms of infrastructure, there is a representative from Isham office who's going to address this, but in her absence, or if she's not available, I'll continue with the presentation in terms of how we conduct it. With regards rail infrastructure, there are technical teams who maintain the infrastructure on a regular basis. And depending on the type of incident and the affected discipline, will be informed, whether it's from electrical, PAWay, or telecoms, about what the incident is all about. And together with security and the discipline, and the control offices will issue a reference number to activate technical personnel to go on site. And the teams will assess the damage, and it's during this damage assessment that the equipment is quantified and also verified with security. At this stage, most of the infrastructure, if you look at some of the OHTE, has also been voluntarily removed because we couldn't protect it. So it will be reinstated when we are ready to be able to protect. I will skip these two slides. I will request the CEO of Prasa Crest to talk on the interventions with regards to Crest. Nyami.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute. So we have found ourselves under siege with regards to the vandalism in our stations. In all fairness, when we started lockdown, with the challenges presented by we should have secured the station. When no one is home, this is when people break in, and that did not happen. So, okay, I think someone is trying to mute me, but there is someone else making noise.
Just check first whether they're not people there at your own place where you are located, who may be talking in the background and so on.
No, I'm in my office.
There's no one there, we'll ask the table to assist. Please proceed.
Thank you. So as a result, what we have then done is since we've come back from lockdown and we've had some of the stations completely vandalized, we've started a process where we did condition assessments. So that is complete, and in response to the rail resumption, in terms of the services to be provided to rail, we have then provided a timetable in which we would then be able to repair. So repair would come in repair and maintenance, which is easy, or in some instances where we would have to put in minor capital, and in extreme cases where we've had vandalism, we would then invest. So that process has started together with General Rakau, Tech, Rail. We are then working on a program where we are aligned with regards to what are the we have to fix certain things so that some of the passengers can go off. We do that. What time would it take us to be able to repair in extreme circumstances? We have given timelines that incorporate SCM processes. What we've done is that we've asked SCM to really work with us in not prolonging the process. We are busy going out on tender to have panels. So those panels would.
Yeah, go both the computer. How I've lost audio both on this.
General,
are you through, Yameka?
No, I'm still talking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please proceed.
So we've got the panels in play that we are going out on tender. In the meantime, we are also going out on tender for specialist valuers who will be able to give us replacement costs as well as the values, so that we can then, when we have simultaneously the panels in place, we can fix the timelines that we're looking at to get the panels, and the valuers is December. We are hard at work to see that most of the stations that we have lost would be repaired by this financial year, or largely in this financial year. And that's where we are, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed, Nyameka.
I am finished with the presentation, Mr. Chair. So that's.
Okay. We'll ask Rakau to proceed. Rakau, Rakau, please don't talk to your colleagues there. Rakau, we want you to finish the presentation.
Yes, no, I'm saying I'm having challenges. My audio, both on the computer and also on the earphones, has gone. So I've requested one colleague to bring his laptop. So we're still discussing that. Sorry for that.
No. If there's a problem there, we should stop there for now. And maybe you'll add that point when you reply later. Colleagues, the next honorable members, the next part of our program is discussions. Are there points that anyone wants to raise? Honorable members, comments, observations, I guess some questions and so on. Yeah, but let's hear you. Honorable members.
I have raised my hand, Chair.
Let's start with Tumsani. Tumsani followed by Winning Wenya, and then John Bisi. In that order.
No, thanks, Chair.
I've raised my hand, Chair. I've raised my hand.
Start with Tumsani.
Yes, Chair. Thanks very much for this opportunity, Chair. We want to express our displeasure and our total dissatisfaction with PRASA. From where we are, we think that we've got no management at PRASA. In actual fact, we are even disappointed that there's no any consequence management that has taken place. In our view, in actual fact, that entire management executive should have been dismissed by now. It has failed to, and in particular here in Gauteng. We saw their security during lockdown. First and foremost, that as part of management responsibility, management must be able to anticipate risk that are involved in any developing situation. And having identified the risk, their second responsibility, therefore, is to develop what you will call normally risk management, to be able to mitigate against the risk that are developing. We could see that during the lockdown, none of that happened. And they've allowed our infrastructure to be looted right in front of their faces. And they've done absolutely nothing, Chair, to be They are very good in producing rail infrastructure being vandalized, but they've done absolutely nothing. And I want to be honest that I don't trust these plans that they're even going to materialize.
Thanks, Chairperson. Whether PRASA is aware that a government province had expressed a wish under the newly formed Transport Authority? If yes, what are the details of such? And if no, what are you not aware? Umbuzo wami wesibili sihlalo. I wanted to know that is PRASA business intelligence working with other law enforcement agencies to fight the theft and the vandalism of rail infrastructure? If yes, why there are many cases of theft and vandalism while you have a business intelligence? Chairperson, iyathusa into eyenzakalela eGauteng. Angifuna ukwazi ukuthi labantu bakwazi kanjani ukuthi basuse nje intambo, basuse nje neziporo nje, kube ngathi nje impela nje kwenzakalanga lutho nje, akuna maphoyisa, akuna intelligent. Iyathusa lento lena sihlala. Buying the stolen cables, and as to who is the marketing for stolen rail infrastructure? If yes, what is the funding and recommendation of the rail lines of Metro? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. John Bisi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. One of the disappointing presentations of the week, actually. I must say that I'm very disappointed. I went through the background and the context of this presentation. As you go down and you read the body of the presentation, you then realize that we're quite disappointed that the PRASA is in a state where it is now because of lack of proper management. And I think it's something that we are worried. I think that he is a trained officer of the state, where he should be actually even telling us our sister countries for infrastructure that we have had for so many years. And this thing collapsed in the hand particular transport. And now today they are being forced or coerced into one or two transport systems, whether it's a taxi. It's not telling us how are they dealing or trying to get this cabal or the cartel that is actually had destroyed the far from Gauteng, I mean Albertine. And I can tell you, Chair, the cables are no longer in those poles. You look at the stations, they've vandalized the stations, and yet we claim to be having our own security. I want to find out from Brigadier, is our security, and where is the police the link system in our country? It does not give us detail as to what is it that they're going to do in arresting the situation, and we are not even sure when is this railway system going to be operating in our country. And that is worrying, and I'm disappointed. Officers there, we thought that things will get better, but instead they've gone worse. And we're not sure as to what is it that we're going to do to combat this particular ills that exist. Lastly, Chair, is the issue of capacity. Does PRASA have capacity really? The current leadership, does it have capacity to manage this particular railing system in our country, adhere to the principles of good workers in the area? Thank you very much, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Joe. Let's move to Kenin Samai.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm so worried about PRASA. There is no management in PRASA. It's just a looting team, just to benefit with the security companies' tenders. I read it Brigadier Raka when he gives representative Yaimo. Ubuga vandalization, abuga theft. But how from 2019 up until now, train is not safe. How safe is training? How we get made that they trainer, the rape trainer, within Praza, killing security, they are benefiting from those security companies. When you talk to those people, you will find they are running that security is one person running the security company for years, because the brigadier, they know how to work with that security company. And some of these people, they are from other abroad. They are from Mozambique. People who are working within the security. They are from Zimbabwe. We can go just here in Pretoria. People are being robbed inside within the train. Within the train, railways, home. You will see there's no security, there's no safe. Even COVID, people were robbed since from Ghana within the trains, because in apartheid era there were people, there were police, trained police, but now we are using security. The security that we are using, they are benefiting more to a tender. Give him mechanism or
Thank you very much. We'll then proceed to Mbulelo Baka, Honorable Baka.
As made by Undade Rakau. But I think, Chairperson, this leaves us with a lot of questions more than answers, because we're not getting a sense of what has been done as we speak. For instance, no one has been employed as yet, because there's this challenge and there's that challenge and so on. So that has not yet been done. But within PRASA, probably is that they think we can assist them with. Because my problem, Chairperson, is that there are people who have no other means of transport in this country except using the rail. And yet, rail is the one use any other. But I'm saying, Chairperson, if you look at the Potchefstroom station that was banned, there's nothing that given that says that this was banned because of this and that, and therefore this is what we've embarked on in terms of trying to address such. And the other point, Chairperson, is on the 900 million from National Treasury, we don't get a sense of how soon will that be received. Crimes internally driven. Because my worry, Chairperson, it's not always the case that people from outside of an institution just commit crime in a specific area. At times they do that because they gain access from people who are working internally. Now, I thought that we would get a sense of saying, out of 20, for an example, cases that are with SAPS, 14 of those are from thing that it's easy for some to just walk in and do something wrong in a specific area. So I'm saying there are gaps that I see in the actual presentation, but I'm not sure whether had he continued to do the presentation, it would get to a point of saying, what is it that is expected of us in terms of assistance, and what it is that can be done. And they are confronted with these crimes on a daily basis, and what it is that we can do to be able to assist and revitalize it. So saying that for me, there are gaps in terms of what we are getting. I can hear that this has been done. We've issued this tender, which would be working on it. There's this case, we've submitted this, and I don't get a sense of what it is that has been done as we speak to try and resolve the matters as they are. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes. At the time when we decided to go ahead and have the questions and comments, we're left with about 4 pages of the slide. The slides. So I don't know if you have the copy. If you don't have the copy, yes, that's some disadvantage. But the bulk of what needed to be presented was presented. Honorable Tango.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm sorry I can't have raised my hand function here. So thank you for letting me come in. Chairperson, I think the people that are stripping here are actually technically qualified. To take those cables down is not that technical, but clearly we have to investigate that. Two is the chop shops. Have these chop shops been an issue of retrieving or removing the licenses, taking back the licenses from the chop shops that are actually found guilty of where these things are found. Chairperson, I think we need to also consider speaking to the Minister of Africa that does not come from a mine and that has no mining record. If we look at those kind of things, I think we can. My question is to the general. Why don't you consider re-employing instead of employing actually have the powers of arrest?
Chair, may I continue?
Should you not take the questions, General?
Sorry. Now, I'm just saying that there have been apologies received from the Minister of Transport, who is today busy at the taxi in Daba, that I'm sure almost all of us are aware of. That was a written apology. There's been some apology that we've also been received from the Minister of Police. We don't have the details. That there was no apology at all. And I'm not justifying this or that. I'm just saying it's information that in Prasa and the team.
It's fine. Okay. Okay. I'll call you in for that.
Yamega or no simple.
No simple, and I will allow my colleagues to actually respond. I think I am picking up the frustration that is actually coming with what here. We have been pulled from different specialist roles that we have done in the 3 months that we have been at Prasa. So we came in here after lockdown to actually resume services at Prasa. Most of the decisions were done by the time we got here. We're equally frustrated that the only reason why Prasa who actually use the train to go to work were vandalized all over. And all of you know that Prasa is actually cash strapped from a cash flow perspective. That's what we found with a lot of capital that has not been spent, but with cash flows that are not there in all the operation divisions, including the brigadier on the security side. So the approach we took was a very collaborative approach that says, how do we tackle this elephant? The first thing is, and there's projects on the way, we said, we are just going to come in and execute as much as we can, because if we continue to plan, then there will not be any movement from the 1st of July. So since we started from the 1st of July, of the 34 corridors that we have across the country, we're actually operating 13. And we've opened them through thick and thin because it's an area where we can actually rehabilitate and then run trains of the rest. When we actually came in, it still is. And therefore, we actually decided that we will bring down the OHTE in a systematic fashion and actually put in diesel trains. So we collaborated with Transnet. We actually brought in diesel trains on the Naledi line, on the Pretoria Pinasport, as well as the Larara Airlines operating in Gauteng long term, but it gave us a kickstart Gauteng. All the other provinces are operating on power because they were not as vandalized as Gauteng, but we wanted to start in Gauteng. So we're running those 3 corridors. We're looking into opening this month in Gauteng, all of them in diesel. However, our technical division is already working on substations and working to bring back power so that we can introduce the new train. Working and strategizing as we go, as we implement it, answer. So what we have done, therefore, is we go into a corridor, we look at how bad the stations are, and assume that corridor has got 15 stations, and we can only operate 9. We look at proximity in terms of where can we drop our people next to ensure that there's proper bathrooms, it's clean, general deploy security, and we actually cooperate. So if you look at our presentation that talks about statistics on security in the 900 million is helping us, is that now we are given this money to say, guys, please make sure that the higher with what the minister has actually launched, where the intelligence are actually helping us and the NPA and the policemen in terms of arrests. And there has been a lot of weeks to take over the other questions, is for the standing committee to also be patient with us, because we are equally frustrated. But we believe in this country. That's why we left cushions we have. We couldn't just watch and see South Africa going down. And it was easy to do so because we were actually sitting in the, so this is our country. And we understand your frustration, but we are dealing with this frustration. So I hear you not trusting what we are saying in terms of execution. We believe in the 3 months we have actually executed a lot for people who are new in this system. And we believe that we are going to turn around PRASA. We need your support. That's what we need the most, is your support. Where can you assist us? We're looking for all the form of assistance that you can get on F to actually get PRASA back on track, because these are our people. I was in the regions as a rail operator. Nyameka was in the regions. The general was in the regions. We actually looking at our passengers and seeing how can we improve the service. Even the trains, the limited train services we have, we actually take a lot of notes from our customers in terms of, does it take you to work in good time? What are the issues? Are you managing? So we really would like you to support, actually ask this question, as well as people coming in who are new. We are not close to legislation. What we know is that up to this point in time, we've been given this task of holding on, of holding on to making sure that PRASA turns around. If it gets devolved because of the policy issues, at least you're devolving something that is tangible, so that the country does not go backwards. And that's the mandate. That's what we're given. So we can't really give you the answer to say we know where the white paper is sitting, or what we are saying is that until the last day, we're going to make PRASA work. That's our commitment to you. All 3 of us sitting in this room, and the 2 other colleagues who are not here, we actually, all the people who were brought in, and we were told it's falling apart. And we said we want to roll our sleeves and make sure that it doesn't. And that's basically the mission that we are in right now. General, I would actually ask maybe you, Onyameka, to add up. I think I didn't answer all the questions, and then we can actually get General to answer the security questions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Onyameka.
Yes. General.
Yes, I just want to,
yes,
Nosipo has talked.
Please proceed.
Nosipo, and a lot of the work that we're putting is to be able to execute. Weak execution has not been happening where there has been that was established. I wanted to talk especially to Potchefstroom and what has happened there. We are investigating. There's obviously a criminal investigation that is going on there, and there seems to be an issue of arson. But from my side, looking after the stations, my concern was that when I came in, with the vandalism that is happening, we did not straight away, we put policies and procedures. And part of that is really doing UIs and coming up with reports and seeing that we mitigate against this so that they don't happen again. And that frustration that Nosip was talking to, which the committee is expressing, has also been about the fact that, and it's come up in our audit report, is that there's no culture. There has been no culture. We are looking at the suspensions where we've had instances people would be suspended on full pay for 2 years or more. So we are looking at all those things so that those people who have been involved in these corruption or fraud and working from inside with that. So we are looking at that while we are busy rolling up our sleeves to make sure that trains are running in the months that Nosipo has outlined for us in the phases in the prioritization. I think the majority of the questions are really General's questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think the issue of consequence management has already been addressed. It's something we're working on, and where there was a question from Honorable Ngwenya with regards the business intelligence unit, what is it doing in PRASA? We don't have such. And as part of the presentation I highlighted, one of the issues I highlighted there was the issue of structures, that they are misaligned towards the intelligence structure. And it has been included in ours, but we didn't sit idle and wait for the structure. One of the first pillar, it's basically the intelligence pillar, which we are constantly in liaison with on a weekly basis. Major crimes which are being attended to by the police. One is pipelines, Transnet. The other one is farm and rural matters. The other one, through the pressure which we have been putting on the police, rail infrastructure crime has also been included as part of the major four crimes. So we're no longer addressing only three, it's four. And the fourth one is rail in meetings, which we're holding on every Thursday with the police to check progress in terms of these priorities. And there was a question also regarding the arrests, that they were unable to point who has been arrested. I think I flagged we've had about 1,200 cases which have been opened in the police, with the police, in terms of vandalism and theft of our infrastructure. And out of those cases, 151 cases, it means they are ongoing in court. They've been remanded. There are case dockets for those cases. And cases under investigation, I said it's 133, and cases in court, it's 96. So in terms of arrest, we do make a sketch. And I did indicate that the security contracts were terminated as from the 1st of May. So the last date for the deployment of security companies was the 30th of April this year. Also the AG on their consecutive reports. So that's why they had to be terminated. And we employed directly. That's a decision which the business took mid-July this year. And I've given the in one of the slides that where we are in terms of Gauteng, we've now employed about let me not talk about, let me go to the target for Gauteng was 814. So we still have got to re-advertise, because, and so it goes to other provinces. So there is progress in terms of in-source or employment of security into PRASA. We just have to re-advertise about 740 something within a very near future. Then the other question was in all the provinces, there are operations which are being planned together with what we call a provincial of Transnet also sit there. They compile operations which scrapyards are going to be visited because it's part of our responsibility to ensure that the Second-Hand Goods Act it's been enforced. So we've got the right to do inspections at these scrapyards unannounced. And if you have read newspapers in the previous week, there was a major burst at Alberton, and there was also another one at Kliptown, where over 15 million goods worth of PRASA, Transnet, and NCOP material, which we discovered that that's ongoing. But our main focus is to ensure that we prevent. It's well and good that we also manage to recover, but our main focus is to ensure that we prevent these incidents from happening. Then there was also an issue. Part of our responding affidavit to the Western Cape High Court was basically based on the safety in trains, and we've indicated that we've now employed what we call platform marshals, and we also employ what we call onboard security. to ensure that the safety of passengers or commuters is also being looked after. Railway police. Railway police have been legislated, and as we speak, we've got around 3,000 railway police throughout the country, and those police are responsible for Transnet. They are responsible for Gauteng, and also private 24-hour basis where you'll get them. But also in terms of right to arrest, what we're doing with our internal personnel is that they should also be declared as safety, as peace officers. And when they are peace officers, they also have the right to can execute the arrest. But that is in process, which we are going to do. It's either they are being declared through legislation or appointed by the provincial commissioners, which is an alternative of appointing our recruitment phase to ensure that we actually equip our officers to do more than holding a baton at the gate. Thanks, Chair. I think I've answered most of the questions. And in terms of the suspicions, all matters must be properly investigated. And when we've got enough proof, actions being taken.
Fellow delegates, because of the time factor, I will ask Deputy Chairperson of Committees, Papa Kanyane, to make his closing remarks.
Chair, I just wanted to ask just one fundamental question, Chair.
Yeah, let's see.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Chair. I'm just the capabilities that are contained within Gauteng to be able to, with immediate effect, try to move with speed, because in our view, that entity is the entity of government, even though it is a concession with so-called the private sector. But I think it does have some capacity that PRASA can tap with immediately on, and they seem not to have my concern. Probably if I could be educated on that regard.
Chair, I'll make it quick. Chair, I'll make it quick. Maybe let me respond. So I actually made a conscious decision to come to PRASA. So we're working very closely with Gauteng, because for me, everything is a phone call and models that we can use with the Gauteng, because we left in a very good, I think when I left the Gauteng, that is exactly my point to say that we need to with the PRASA, with Gauteng at this point in time, both the operator, the maintainer, as well as the GMA. Up something and they just picked up the phone and we sorted that thing out, because where we are sharing precincts like Rhodesville, like Pretoria, we actually do the for the benefit of the deputy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that the point is also noted. I'm sure other issues can be pursued outside of the meeting. Mpapa.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will also try and be brief, because when I look at the program, we are already behind schedule. Really express our sincere appreciation on behalf of the legislature. Since we started on Tuesday, I think the level of consistency, it has been very impressive, and the presentations that were tabled were very informative, comprehensive, and then also the inputs that have been made, which for me, they've been invaluable.
I'll ask the table to assist, but please proceed and conclude, Mpapa.
Honorable Mpapa.
be a problem there with Mpapa. No, let's thank Mpapa for his contributing remarks there. We'll try and get copies and share the information with the participants. Honorable members, we are now at a point where we should really close the meeting. Let me thank everybody for all the contributions and meaningful participation. And let's proceed to the sites and hopefully almost all of us will be there tomorrow for the debriefing, which may revisit one or two issues. Thank you very much.